Well, good morning. Thanks for coming. So the way this works for some of you have been here before, so you're old pros at it. You basically ask me questions. First, I'll kind of start off with some things that are pertinent. I don't have a whole lot, but we are going to show a video of the downtown Orland Park, which we approved 2 board meetings ago, so roughly 3 weeks ago. But before we show that, I'll just show some of the other projects we've got going on that are on these various boards in various stages. So starting over here with Schuessler Park, this is the all-inclusive playground, which is the next phase. So the first phase was this. How many people have seen it? So it came out fantastic. It looks great. What people don't know about this whole area used to flood. We had difficulties scheduling games and the like. Soccer fields used to run this way. As part of this project, we fixed the drainage. We put a bunch of storage underneath here for water storage. So, and we've had, not now, but a few months ago, a lot of rain, and it handled it no problem. The fields were usable. These fields are being used all the time by kids. It didn't used to happen, so it's great. These are in. The next phase is this phase, which is a basketball court, all-inclusive playground, all of that. So this phase here was about $11 million because about 6 of that was underground water storage and stormwater. And the whole fairway area has had a long history of flooding issues, and we did a lot of stormwater work as well prior to this, and this just helps it even more because this is where all the water storage is. We also dredged the pond, found some interesting things in there like a mini fridge and a tire, and so we dredged all that and restocked it, and created some places, some outcropping, things like that where kids could fish. And then this is the all-inclusive playground. This is just a concept. We're trying to raise money for it. It looks like we've applied for a grant. I think it's highly likely we will get it, a $600,000 grant. If we get that, as has been the board's policy, if we can get money from outside sources, we'll find the way to pay for the project with the rest of the money that we have. So even if we have to slide it forward or back, we'll do that. So that hopefully will happen next year. The police training facility, which is got the foundations poured, and so that should open up next spring. So for those of you who don't know, we had a firing range. It was next to the Public Works building. It basically shot into a hill. It had like lean-tos across it. It was pretty dangerous. Bullets bouncing off Public Works. It was not good. Something we got away with for years when we didn't have anything built behind it, but now when you have not Chewy's, but what's going to be, that one's going to be Seasons 52, Miller's, and Stan's. With all of that there, the gunshots, everything else that people, because it was an outdoor space, it was shut down a couple of years ago. So our guys have just been going to qualify. We do have a simulator inside and that kind of stuff, but all of that, all the training stuff we have inside now, the little simulator room and stuff will all go into here. So, but this is a full shooting range. Also, the doors back here will be open so that you can drive vehicles in here so we can practice things around vehicles and things like that. So, and also we have a emergency operating center, which is in the old police department down in the basement. It's old, as you can imagine. I mean, it was put in the mid 80s or so. That building started being constructed in 83. So that's when it was put in. So we're going to tie all that together. So basically it'll all be in one facility, so it won't be all over the place. So, and that EOC will actually work. So it'll actually be combined with a training classroom, so it can be converted into the EOC when we need it, which is very rarely. I think we've used it once, or for one period of time. We used it for a while with COVID. But for the most part, it's going to be a training area, and then you've got a simulator room up here. So this is where dispatch. So dispatch would go here in the event of we have to go to the emergency operating center. So that's what would happen there. So that's being done now. Let's see. We have Centennial Park West. How many people have been out there? So Centennial Park West came out fantastic. There's still some punch list items that need to be done there, but it's in really good shape. I think there's some ideas for next year to improve it that we're looking at as well. Obviously, you'll learn things from your first year, but this has been, it's a fantastic venue. Nothing but positive comments from all the acts that came here, that it's a first-class facility and people wanting to come back. So, so that one's done. Let's see, over here in progress, this is the, so this is the new Veterans Center. So on West Avenue, just to the north of High Point School, there's a building there, looks like a house. So the Veterans Center that is to the south of that now is going to move here. The Veterans Center that was to the south of that basically was, it was the old police station. So it was the police station before the old police station over here. So way back when. The building's basically beyond its useful life. It needs almost $500,000 in repairs. Actually more than that, but about $600,000 I think in total. So we decided, hey, it's better to reuse this space. This right now is being used by our some offices for our parks management staff. They're going to move into the rec building so that everyone's in the rec building. And then this has been gutted and essentially, redone so that it has a different layout inside. So storage, a big area for common space, has a dining room and a kitchen. What does it have that the other one doesn't have? It's got a slightly bigger, maybe 100 square foot bigger common space, but it also has a kitchen, which is nice. As someone who's a member of both posts, it would be nice to have something that's not just a refrigerator and a closet. So they've got a little kitchen, a little dining room area. There's also a deck off the back of it that's been replaced a couple years ago, so which would be great for picnics and things like that. Plus, personally, I find the setting in the woods there to be a lot nicer than the setting over just to the south. So that's going to move somewhere around Veterans Day timeframe, maybe a little sooner than that. We're going to try and have an event on a weekend to help get the residents out to help us move stuff from one location to the other. Anything that's not going to be put in the new there's a lot of stuff, I'll just call it stuff, in the current Veterans Center that maybe be better with the museum as artifacts than necessarily up. So that's all being done. Behind that, there's going to be a storage building also for them. So they're going to have a lot more storage because they have storage right now in a garage, but they'll have a lot more storage. Why is that important? The internal storage in particular is it'll be more secure, and they do have weapons for their the salutes that they do and the funerals that they do and that kind of stuff. So that's going to be done. Behind that, there's actually a new athletics garage going up, athletics maintenance. So if you think of John Humphrey, all that maintenance that goes on there, that building was literally, that they were in was literally falling down. So, so that's all being done. That's going to be done in the next couple of months. This is part of what you're going to see with the downtown Orland. So this is the concept is a Heroes Park is what it's being called. So if you think of this is Crescent Park now, and then they're going to take this other section as well, and they're going to redo all that. So you still have a band area here. This area here will be in the wintertime, will be able to use for ice skating. So the idea being, so believe it or not, so our ice skating rink is very, very expensive to maintain, those compressors and all that. So the idea, and obviously it's isolated. So the idea being having the ice skating rink over here where there's going to be some restaurants and things nearby and some other activity nearby. Also, it'll be maintained as part of this whole complex, so not part of the village, so that will ease some of our budget burdens on that. So that's Heroes Park. And then Dugan Park. So this is, if you think of Dugan Park and the old library, which is really was for me the new library, but because there was one before that. But the old library, which sat here, that building needed about $6 million in repairs. We did offer it up to the schools as part of it because they had a bunch of additions they wanted to do. We said, hey, you could take this. They chose instead to add on to 5 schools. It was about $11 million more for them. I don't know why they made that decision. But that was their decision to make. So we decided, well, in that case, we don't really have a use. We can move what few things we do here. We can move that over here. So we've made basically made this whole area a recreation campus. So we've got the Civic Center, Levy Center, Rec Admin Building, and moved all of our recreation stuff into those buildings. So there'll be a park put here. Right now you just see grass, but there'll be a park put here. This field will be redone. So these fields will stay, but they're going to just be revitalized. The big thing here is we keep getting asked for pickleball. So this will be 10 pickleball courts. lighted, and 2 tennis courts. So right now it has a couple tennis courts, but we're going to expand that out. Already has the parking available, so that doesn't need much change. That also is going to start next year. We do have a grant already for this, for $600,000 to offset the costs of this as well. So it's more than that to get done, but that's what we've got going on. So those are the big projects we've got going on. And then what I'm going to do now is show you a video of the downtown Orland Park. So I don't know, it's about 6 or 7 minutes long. So it'll talk about the TIF. It'll talk about what's going on there. It has been approved. The public hearing was held. So just to go back, so since I've been here, obviously this was all started in 2004 or even before, but the TIF was created in 2004. The problem with it is they never had a plan. We didn't own the land. The developer didn't own the land. They had to use all that money that they borrowed to buy out businesses, force businesses out. So Davidson Concrete, BD Lumber, well, that took a long time. And then they had no plan for what to put in there. They put streets in with no plan. The problem with that is if you talk to any developer, they want to have kind of a blank slate because then they can move things around and do the things they want. If you build the streets already, you're kind of stuck. And so that's what they saw. That's what you saw. Basically, apartments went in 12, 13 time frame. I think it was approved in 11. We used $64 million of taxpayer money to build them. Borrowed that money. I can tell you right now, apartments, that's the one thing we could put in anywhere in the village and they wouldn't ask for anything from us. And we're constantly telling them no. So we put $64 million of our money up for that. The developer put up $1 million. Not a whole lot of risk on the developer's part. So that went in. University of Chicago Medical Center went in. I think it opened in 2016. Great to have University of Chicago Medical Center here. They were coming here. They were looking at other properties as well. The village came in and kind of undercut them, those other businesses. The problem with that is it's a non-for-profit, and a non-for-profit doesn't generate any property tax. And the way a TIF works, it's the property tax increment that pays for everything. So it kind of defeats the purpose of having a TIF. So it's great to have them here, but unfortunately, that's where we're at. That's where we were at when I got here 14 years in. We tried to go out for an RFP. We did go out for an RFP. There were 2 of 7 that actually submitted plans for the whole development. One of them was selected out of 5-2 vote. Then during COVID, they backed out. They really weren't doing anything. I asked them, are you in, you out? They basically backed out. So then we asked the other developer who also had submitted if they were still interested. They were. They happen to be local as well. They own the crossings across the street. They've stayed engaged since that time. So since COVID, 2021, we've had probably 15 to 20 public meetings on this. There were 3 or 4 up front over at the Civic Center where we got a lot of feedback for what people wanted to see. It was really, we didn't put up anything of this is what we're doing, just what do you want to see? And so they took all that feedback, they helped build it. We obviously took the feedback as well. So the new, the plan they came up with, it has some office space, it has obviously the park, it has restaurants, some retail. It's not that big of a space. Everyone has this big vision of, like a Naperville downtown. Naperville downtown is like 4 blocks by 4 blocks. This isn't even a block by a block. It's just not that big. Office space in there as well, and there's no new residential going in. So what we did was we approved, so all of those things happened, and we had all kinds of meetings and hearings and approvals, and it went to the Planning Commission, and then we had public hearings on the TIFs. We've had public meetings on approving the project. So like I said, it's probably north of 20 now that we've had, Cindy, I would guess. And Trustee Katsinas is here, by the way. So, we've had north of that. And I would say since that first meeting where we had everyone come give feedback, we've had very few, if any, comments whatsoever on the project. So, but in any case, what will happen is the old TIF is going to be shrunk down, and they're going to talk about it, but I'll just summarize. It's going to be shrunk down to basically the buildings that exist, and that runs for a couple more years. And then the new TIF is all the empty space. So we can actually use the TIF. So TIFs are a very valuable tool if used correctly. In this case, it wasn't used correctly, but by having a plan right out of the gate, they break ground right out of the gate. You'll see the property tax right out of the gate. that will help pay for a lot of the infrastructure and changes and things like that need to happen. So with that, go ahead and play the video. And then after that, I'll open it up to questions about anything in the village.
Work is well underway between the Village of Orland Park and Edwards Realty to finalize the details of downtown Orland Park, with the goal of breaking ground sometime this fall. If you recall, in 2004, the Village of Orland Park undertook an ambitious effort to develop an area that meets the village's long-standing vision of creating a pedestrian-friendly downtown environment for Orland Park. Having invested approximately $150 million into the triangle in public-private partnerships, public investments, private investments, land acquisition, and roadway intersection improvements, the project remains incomplete. Seeking to finally bring home the village's long-standing vision for the area, at the May 2nd, 2022 Village Board meeting, the Village Board approved the conceptual master development plan for downtown Orland Park. Downtown Orland Park contains 9.15 acres of undeveloped land in the Main Street Triangle between 143rd Street and LaGrange Road. This area is currently a TIF district. What is a TIF? TIF, or tax increment financing, is an economic development tool used to boost economic growth and create jobs by allowing developers to pursue developments that they normally wouldn't if they had to fund the projects on their own. TIF districts are created for 3 reasons. Number 1, the local government does not have the funds needed to revitalize the property. Number 2, developers are hesitant to invest because redevelopment costs would exceed property values. And number 3, without action, the surrounding areas are at risk of decay and an eroding tax base. Once the TIF is approved, the annual property tax increases in the district are frozen at their current level. The increment above the frozen level is then used to pay off the financing over time. The development will increase the property value within the TIF district, and once completed, create additional tax revenue for the community. The additional retail sold from the real estate can increase the sales tax revenue from the community as well. For example, the current assessed value of all properties within the proposed downtown Orland Park TIF district is $0. When the TIF district expires in 23 years, the new assessed value of the property will be approximately $45 million. TIF doesn't pull money from schools or any other taxing body. All other taxing bodies are entitled to the tax revenue they were receiving before the creation of the TIF district, and schools and other taxing bodies will receive the benefit of the tax revenue after the TIF district expires. Without the TIF district, the assessed value of all properties within the proposed downtown Orland Park TIF district will remain $0. Remember, TIF is not a new tax. Now that that's out of the way, in order to continue development in and around the TIF district at the Main Street Triangle, the village must do 2 things. 1, amend the existing TIF district boundary to include a subset of the parcels currently in the TIF district, and 2, designate a new TIF district on some of the parcels currently in the TIF district. Since the May 2nd, 2022 Village Board meeting, the plans of downtown Orland Park have evolved to create a truly iconic and enjoyable experience, attracting some of Chicagoland's most desirable cafes, restaurants, and marketplaces. There will be over 140,000 square feet of new building space that will be used for retail, restaurant, entertainment, and other commercial uses. But most importantly, no new residential space will be built. Heroes Park will be the central hub to downtown Orland Park, designed to accommodate flexible outdoor activities, including farmers markets, concerts, ice skating, and additional activities. The site will include a tribute to Heroes water feature and over 37,000 square feet of landscaping area, with plenty of trees for shade and a plethora of lawn room for everyone to enjoy. The North Pond will be another beautiful feature for the development. Residents can overlook the water feature while enjoying the businesses of downtown Orland Park. This area will have a completed pedestrian connection to LaGrange Road for more access. Downtown Orland Park is seated right along a rail line with a Metra commuter rail stop at 143rd Street. This considers the development a transit-oriented development. Transit-oriented developments, or TOD, create compact mixed-use developments near public transit to ensure people ease of access to jobs and other services. Some examples of other transit-oriented developments include Downers Grove, Park Ridge, LaGrange, and Arlington Heights. Some of the other updated parcels include the current two options of the site plan for downtown Orland Park utilize over 1,450 total parking spaces for the development. According to an independent parking study done on July 16, 2024, this amount of total parking spots will exceed the required amount during peak projected times for parking needs in both site plan options. With the expansion of Heroes Park from the previous Crescent Park parcel, a traffic study needed to be done to determine how traffic would flow throughout the downtown Orland Park area. According to an independent study done on July 22, 2024, with the modifications to Crescent Circle Drive, Jefferson Avenue, an addition of a pickup and drop-off area on the north side of 142nd Street, and new access drives serving parcels A, B, and C, the intersections that provide access to downtown Orland Park will accommodate development-generated traffic without impacting internal intersection operations. In addition, the internal intersections within the site are projected to operate efficiently and will not impact the access intersection operations. The site will also continue to provide adequate accommodations for pedestrians. The total development cost of this project, including improvements, is approximately $80,500,000. The TIF Increment Fund will fund approximately $33 million of this cost. Of that, about $10 million will be used for utility relocation and the construction of Heroes Park. Additionally, the village will be dividing up its bonds for financial security. As development reaches a set of standards, more money will be released. In order to ensure long-term maintenance of downtown Orland Park, the village will also establish a special service area for the entire property. Special service areas, or SSAs for short, are local tax districts that fund expanded services and programs through a localized property tax levy within that tax district. Revenue generated by the downtown Orland Park SSA could be used for a number of things, including the following. There are a lot of moving parts as part of this project. Here are some important upcoming dates. These dates are subject to change. Because of the importance of this project for the community, we want to hear from you. Before a TIF district is created, the redevelopment plan must be available for public review at least 45 days prior to the public hearing. The public hearing offers the community an opportunity to raise questions and voice their concerns about the proposed redevelopment. A registry of interested residents and organizations must also be created for each TIF, and a notice of important TIF activities shall be sent to those registered. For more information or to sign up for the TIF registry, please visit orlandpark.org/DTOP.
So that's the TIF. The public hearing's already been held. All of that stuff that you saw there is done. The final approval and the development agreement are going to be at the first meeting in October. Some key things here to reiterate. So the way a TIF works is the current property tax levels are frozen, and then obviously new buildings get new assessments and they generate property tax. Any of the property tax over and above that floor goes into the TIF. So that's why No money's coming out of anybody's hands, no money's coming out of the taxpayers' hands. It's just anything that's in there goes directly into the TIF, and that's what's used to pay back the bonds or pay for things. So, for example, Orland Park Place, where Dick's is at, that was a TIF. That was actually a successful one. At the end, there was money left over, and it got sent to all of the, it got sent to every taxing body. The current TIF we have is, on paper, is $30 million in the hole. It's probably more than that because back in '04 to whatever, they were using general funds as well, and they didn't even keep a track of it in the TIF fund, so it's probably more than $30 million. But as you saw in there, one of the things we have to do is, one of the things that we're going to be doing is paying for utility relocation. When they put utilities in this space, and you can't see the whole space there, I mean, you know, we all have houses. Where are utilities usually? They run along the sides, right? The easements are around the edges of your property. They actually ran all the big utilities right through the middle of all these parcels. So they have to be moved. So that's going to cost us several $1 million to do, and we'd have to do that regardless of who builds there. So just a lot of mistakes made. Unfortunately, we have to fix them. And as you can see, what's planned here is $33 million of increment. That's the same amount that was lost on this, what's been done so far, or less. The other thing we're doing is we're breaking it up. Anything that we have to do, because the TIF dollars that come in is what pays off all of the bonds that are used to pay for this. You know, just like your house, you don't have enough cash to buy your house. We don't have much cash to do $80 million worth of project, right? So the developer's going to borrow money. The village will take out bonds, and the TIF proceeds pay off those bonds. So one of the things we're doing is we're breaking those bonds into increments so that these milestones are met. So if something happens, God forbid you have another COVID and it stops construction or whatever, we don't have all of that stuff done already, and so it basically mitigates our risk. So we're doing that as well. So I guess I'll start with since we just talked about any questions on the triangle or the TIF.
Do you have a proposed date when you think it might be finished?
2 to 4 years, kind of depends. They have a bunch of letters of intent. They're ready to get signed. None of those places will sign them until the deal is approved. So I would expect that they'll start announcing after October approval. I know what some of them are. I can't really release them yet. Some of the things they're looking to get in there. Some are more solid than others right now. And they'll do it in phases. But their goal, they want to get done as fast as we want them to get it done as fast as possible, because the sooner they get it done, the more time you have to collect that increment. So that's the problem too. If you wait, like in this case, you're 20 years in, you only got 3 years of property taxes. If you get it built right away, that's why you want to have a plan right away, so that you get it in the ground right away, so that generates the most revenue to help the project.
Years ago, we seen this issue, and some of the businesses got off with wood on that basis, property taxes were going. And they went in for the wrong reasons. It was basically go in, set up a corporation, steal as much money as they could, and then file bankruptcy.
Well, property taxes aren't frozen to the people who build there. Property taxes are frozen. The level is frozen right now to what goes to the schools. So whatever it currently is, so whatever was in there before, with Randy's Market and all that, that was generating property tax. That money has been going to the school district, the fire district, and everything since the beginning of the TIF. That's what they talk about being frozen. Any new property tax that's generated goes into the TIF fund. So it doesn't freeze their taxes. It's just they're paying those taxes. Yes, there have been TIFs that have been successful. There are TIFs that are not successful. We've seen, I just gave you an example of a successful one in Orland Park Place. The current triangle TIF has been an absolute disaster, and there's a whole list of reasons of things you should never do in a TIF that were done. You shouldn't be borrowing money to buy out businesses, right? You want to have control of the property, or either the developer has control of the property or you have control of the property before you start this process. Because if you don't, you could spend years wasting the TIF away while you're trying to get control of it. So we did that. We put a non-for-profit in a TIF. We already talked about that. We ran utility. We put all the roads in with no plan. We had no plan. All of those things are just bad ideas.
Well, I guess my question is, if the bonds go bad, if for some reason the bonds can't be paid back, the village, or the taxpayers in the village are the homeowners and businesses, other businesses and so on. Is there anything they can do to ensure those bonds that will be paid back?
So
if they
we'll be
go-
responsible for the bonds that we take out, which are for public improvements. We'll be, just like we are now. I mean, we still have bonds now we're paying off that there's not enough increment. That's because they took all that money out way, way back. And so we've been dealing with that for a long, long time. That's one of the reasons why we're laying out our bonds, the $33 million in bonds we'll have to take out into 3 tranches. So if something happens, if, God forbid, a COVID comes along and all of a sudden the developer goes bankrupt, we don't have all that money sunk in yet. We have less of it put in there. But that money, everything that we put in has to go towards public uses, and that's all in the TIF Act of what it can be used for and what it can't be used for.
So they feel after all this is done in the future, they're going to gain about $45 million.
Well, so the assessment right now is that property, if built, would be worth $45 million. 23 years from now, it'll be worth more than that. But in today's dollars, it'd be worth $45 million. So you'd have $45 million of assessed value, in Orland Park's property tax districts.
Just one other question. On the money we've already spent, $150 million to develop other areas, what the apartment buildings and so on, what kind of return have we received as taxpayers in the
I
village?
just told you, we're on the books, we're $30 million in the hole. It was a disaster from the beginning. So, yeah, I mean, there's just no two ways about it. All the reasons I gave you from 2004 on. We inherited it, our board inherited it, I inherited it, just trying to fix it. That's kind of where we're at. TIF is still, a TIF is still the best tool we have available if the project is planned properly, if it's done right away. That's the best tool we have available because it generates new property tax that is, all that money is used for the project over a 23-year period. And so it basically self-funds. If the project is done right, it self-funds the project, and then anything extra in the TIF fund. So say we get more property tax than what's projected, anything that's extra sits in a fund, and then when the TIF closes, so this can happen too. It's 23 years long as the maximum TIF. That's usually how long you set it up for. But say everything gets paid off in 15 years. Okay, we could either keep it open and then just keep collecting the money and putting it in a pot, and then at the end of the 23 years, basically we get divvied out proportionally to each taxing body. Or you could just close the TIF and everyone starts getting their property taxes. So those are the things that could happen. So we're trying to set it up so that these things are as successful as possible. So.
If you had been mayor when this all started, would you have tried to create a downtown?
No. I mean, I was against it at the time. Everything was fully rented, everything was a business that was operating, everything was paying taxes. Was it old? Yes. And I mean, I grew up here, it was the only place to shop when you were growing up. I grew up a block from there, okay? So I grew up on Jefferson, so maybe 200 yards, 250 yards from there. So for my first 14 years of my life, so I'm very familiar with the space. At the end of the day, that property would have been primed for redevelopment at some point. Well, the developer is going to go in and start acquiring those properties. And the developer is going to bring the village a plan that says this is what we'd like to do, and then the village can work with that developer to get something done there. If you think of across the street, you have a more walkable retail space. So I don't know what the developer would have come up with, but I know that letting developers and real estate developers and people who do this for a living come up with the ideas is a lot better than us doing it. And essentially what happened is that board, the former mayor, they decided to play real estate speculator and developer, not with their money, but with taxpayer money. I don't think that's the right thing to do. I think let the developer go out and do that.
Was there ever a downtown area in Orland?
No. I mean, we were a farming community with one train station. It's not like some of these places that are 15 miles closer to Chicago that 50 years before had kind of a little downtown area. You think of like Naperville along the river with the manufacturing they had that. We just didn't. Back then we were a farming community of like 300 people. So we just never had that. So we trying to make something that we're not, I guess. But okay, so that's all history. We are where we are. So what's the best thing that we can do going forward with that space? And my, if you will, what I said, this is the goal, and the board agreed to the developer is, we want something, with the empty space that's here, we want something that everyone in Orland Park can enjoy, not just the people who have resided in the new apartments there or the new apartments across the street over at the crossings, so that everyone in Orland Park will like going there. So if we're gonna do something like this with our money, and we're gonna help, and we knew we'd have to, we want something that everyone can enjoy, okay? So that was one. And two was very little or no new residential. That was our two big things. And then the third thing was we'd like to see more office space. And part of the reason why we have to do incentives is because we're doing some office space, because office space is challenging, but we need to expand our economy and diversify it a little bit. And more retail. The reality is more retail and restaurants probably means some of our outlying retail and restaurants close. But from an Orland Park perspective, long term, we have to protect the core of Orland Park, which is 143rd to probably 167th along LaGrange Road. That has to be protected. If that fails, everything else is going to fail too. So that has to be protected. And if some of these outlying strip centers and whatnot die, well, they can be replaced with, potentially with housing, or if it's along 159th, it'll probably be expanded car dealerships, right? We don't have, the good news is we don't have a lot of that, because back in the 60s and 70s, the planning was, hey, we're going to put our corridor on LaGrange Road. So that was very smart. But still, there's still going to be outlying spaces that will be challenged, because we all know that as a whole, we're over-retailed. So as we add retail, there's somewhere it's going to probably close. Now, restaurants, believe it or not, according to the marketplace, we still are underserved with restaurants, which I find that hard to believe. Maybe certain types of restaurants, but I hear it all the time. Oh, it's horrible, restaurants are closing. Restaurants close all the time. They've been closing all the time for a long time. It's the highest failure business that there is. We have last I looked, we have 49 or 50, not including coffee shops and ice cream shops. We have like 149 or something like that. And 77 of those are owned by families. And that's not including the chains that are actually franchises. They're owned by families too. So, but truly family-owned businesses, it's like half of our restaurants. People just don't think of it because they think of LaGrange Road, and they think of Miller's, and they think of the chain stuff along BJ's along LaGrange Road. But think of the Indras and the Mexican place next to that, Joy of Thai, Opa, all these other places, Baracos, two of them, Fox's, all these Pizza Pete. There's places all over, right? That are so they're just not concentrated, because LaGrange Road is expensive, real expensive. So it's the chains that can kind of afford that more than mom and pops.
What's the big hole up on 143rd going to Homewood Lane?
The 143rd widening's been the top priority since before I was mayor. It's top priority for all the mayors in the southwest suburbs. It was the top priority for all the mayors in the southwest suburbs. Now, I guess in Homer, that's not the priority anymore. But everywhere else, every other mayor, it's been a top priority, because there's only 3 roads that connect 355 to 294 between I-80 and I-88. And that's Ogden, 143rd, and 159th. That's it. And it's 5 lanes from Southwest Highway all the way to 294. And it's 2 lanes or 3 lanes to all the way to to Will Cook, and then it goes to 5 lanes again. Then from Bell Road, it goes to State. It's back down to 2 lanes, and it widens back out. The busiest section of road is between Southwest Highway and Wolf, and it makes no sense. The holdup is money. It's been engineered. The village has put a lot of money into the engineering, which, even though it's a state road, we've put a lot of our own money in to try and spur this along. It's basically getting the state to fund it. So we've gotten federal money for the section from Southwest Highway to West Avenue. That's going to start next year. So that'll fix the intersection at Southwest Highway, the double light at Union. It'll fix it into one. I don't know exactly how they're fixing it, but they're changing that. It'll widen that section right there. So that section will get done. So hopefully that will kick them in the butt to get the rest done. The hardest section to do is West Avenue to Wolf. because it's really bad soil, so it's a lot of land bridges, very expensive. From Wolf to Wilcook is actually pretty much shovel ready, and it's about the same price as West Avenue to Southwest Highway. I would say 75, 80% of the project cost is from West Avenue to Wolf. So, because of that. Oh, and by the way, we also got a lot of the land acquisition is already done. We just finally, took me 7 years for something that I consider to be a no-brainer. Anyone familiar with the Nature Center, what we call the Nature Center? It's that little triangle piece between Southwest Highway and LaGrange Road. We spent a bunch of money restoring it, and a lot of money restoring it. We had land donated to it because it's non-buildable. So it's like got a bird habitat, and it's got all the native, it's got the building. Well, we don't have the skill set in-house to maintain it. We don't have the skill set in-house to maintain a bird sanctuary. And I was thinking to myself, but when I first got elected, I'm like, this is right across the street from a forest preserve. I know the forest preserves, they were one of my biggest clients. I know they don't really have any offices down here. Like, why don't I have a conversation with them? And so I did. They were very excited about swapping that. And I said, okay, what do we want in return? So, and so what are we getting in return for swapping that out? So we're getting, we had right-of-way along 143rd, but not enough. So now we will have enough right-of-way to do that project, that widening project. So we're getting permanent right-of-way from the Forest Preserve. So IDOT's not gonna have to get in a fight with Forest Preserve, which can take years. We already have it. We got right-of-way on the west side of Park School, so that you can extend West Avenue and bring the kids in through the back, which is a lot safer than the way they go now. So, so we got right-of-way for that. We got, so we owed the Forest Preserve some tree mitigation fees. So we got all that waived. So if it's a dollar for dollar thing, the Forest Preserve's making out. A lot of people at the time were, well, this is the kind of stuff I heard. It's not going to be an Orland Park. This isn't Orland Parks. And I'm like, no one's picking it up and moving this space to Lyle. It's still an Orland Park. Who cares who maintains it? To me, it's the biggest no-brainer government thing I've seen since I've been here, good government thing. Get that property, which we've agreed not to ever build, it's open land. Once Forest Preserve has it, it's always going to stay open land. Get it to the people who can take care of it and know how to take care of it. And we don't. We have to pay. And I was talking to a person who used to be a village manager here. He goes, to me, he goes, just giving it to them would have been fantastic, because just the $250,000 plus of maintenance fees you don't have to pay every year is great, because the Forest Preserve has the skill set in-house to do that. So we actually got a little bit of something in return. Believe it or not, that to me is as obvious as it gets. 7 years it took till we got an agreement. 7 years. And it was basically Cook County. The politics of Cook County. It was like, this is just a nightmare. And ultimately, it didn't get done until I said, we're done. We're done doing any more work on it. We spent too much time with our attorneys and everything else doing this. You either want it or you don't. And the minute I said that, then they voted on it and passed it. So that's just dealing with Cook County. What can I say? So, yeah.
I was curious if there's any plans for the property over by Petey's too?
So the people that have purchased it have shown us some plans. They're still in concept. I think they're engineering them now, and they're developing more details so they can submit them. So it's it's a mixed-use office, retail, restaurants kind of a space. No residential. So that's what they're looking at doing.
The 131st off of Southwest Highway, it looks like they're putting in a big drainage area or something?
So that whole road is being redone well outside of Orland Park city limits, and so they're fixing drainage on there, they're fixing the road. That's supposed to be done end of next year. It's IDOT, so it'll probably be the following year. But that's what that is, and that will help alleviate the flooding we had between 135th and 131st. We've already alleviated that a lot. When I first got here, we had the big rainstorms, and basically I called the meeting. I had mayors, I had Commissioner Morrison. We had IDOT. IDOT got an earful from us. IDOT said, well, the reason that it's flooding is because the McGinnis Slough was overflowing into it, and they said that that the Cook County Forest Preserves didn't want to reduce, they didn't want to drain the slough. And I'm like, I don't think that's right. So I contacted, again, I have a good relationship with Cook County at the time, the Cook County Forest Preserves. I called them, and they said, no, we want to drain it. IDOT's been stopping it. So if you think about how much water, again, a slough can hold, they want to drain it in like September for the spring and drain it slowly. Well, they're not draining it, so now it's full. Now when all these heavy rains came, those 2 years where we had record rains in May, it's overflowing onto our roads because you had all that water that could have been stored in the slough before it overflowed, right? Also, they had two culverts that were collapsed. They knew they were collapsed. They wouldn't do anything to fix it. Our engineers actually came up with a fix a couple of years ago. IDOT did implement it with their maintenance crews, and we haven't had any flooding over there since. So we basically got involved. We identified the problem. Our engineering team solved it, and so there we are. But it hasn't been. Back then, we were trying to get them to push this project up. In fact, they did. They pushed this project up to 2021, 2022. You can see where we're at today. We're still, but it's not as urgent anymore because we're not flooding over there. So.
I'm going to change gears.
Okay.
Going to the concert property.
Yep.
Lovely, enjoyed it. But one thing, and I've heard the same complaint from a lot of people, is that it's too loud. You can't even talk to one another.
Well, it's a concert venue, so it's a concert venue. It's not there for people to talk to each other. Okay, so again, it's a concert venue. So people go to concerts to listen to music, and so and the first concert we had out there, the second act was an acoustic guy, so he has the sound down, and the people in the back complained because they couldn't hear it. So you can't make everyone happy, but I just tell you, it's a concert venue. So if it's a concert venue and you go to Pat Benatar, you can expect it to be a rock concert. It is not a place to go chat and talk. I've been to a lot of concerts. I don't usually chat and talk and hang out. Now, because I'm sitting in, I usually sponsor it and people are coming up to me all the time, I end up talking quite a bit, unfortunately. I'd love to watch a concert. I haven't seen one out there yet that I haven't been able to just sit there and enjoy. But it just kind of goes with the territory. But every concert I've ever been everywhere else, we're listening to the concert. So it's a concert venue. I will say that I've walked that whole thing. I've had conversations throughout that whole thing because people always stop and talk to me. I can always have I've always been able to have a conversation. Where it's loudest is here. That's where it's loudest. It's actually quieter up here and quieter in the back. It's loudest right about here. And I imagine that's because the sound guys, when they're mixing everything, is trying to get it in the center, is trying to make sure that that's where the sound's the loudest. But that's what I've seen.
There were people complaining because people were standing up dancing. If you go to the World and you spend $300 on a ticket in a seat, and the people stand in front of you, you have the option to stand also or stay seated and not see. So I thought that was a little odd that there were complaints about people dancing.
It's a concert. I can't make everyone happy, and it's a concert. I mean, that's all I can say. It's a concert venue. It's music. Hopefully people are having a good time. I know I did. I think the people there, when they were leaving, people loved it. It's a great venue. We got a few tweaks. I think the biggest thing that we want to do is we want to put video screens on the left and right so that you can see it. There's been a lot of complaints about the sound tent. Oh, and believe me, the people tell me they know so much about, listen, we had professionals design this, okay? National acts will not come to a place that puts the sound tent over on the side. The sound tent needs to be in the front. They need to hear what they're mixing to do it. It's standard in every concert venue you've ever been to, 80 to 90 feet out, that's where it is. And so that's where it's going to be. But I think when we put the video screens up, that will help. We also got a less obtrusive tent that we had for the last few concerts, so it was better. But I think that will all help. But that's probably the biggest change that we'll see for next year is hopefully we'll see those video boards up. So it was designed for the way what we do, which is obviously let people in with picnic tables and all that. It was designed for 5,000. It can hold way more than 5,000 because we had probably 14,000 on the Taste of Orland at that Saturday night. So we had 14 to 15,000 people in here. So I would say, comfortably we figure we can do 10 to 12,000 tickets pretty comfortably. If we did a concert of that size, it wouldn't be a bring your own food in and bring your own drink. That's going to be a concert with ticket. If it's ever a bigger act like that, it's going to be higher priced tickets. It's going to be open to everything. I don't think we're looking at doing a whole lot of that, maybe 1 or 2 of those a year. We'll just see how it plays out. It's not going to be a constant thing.
I heard that New Lenox had 6,000 for the Ringo Starr concert, and it's all stars.
Yeah,
They were packed in there like stars.
we had at the, who was there Saturday night of the Taste of Orland? We had 15,000 people in there. Was it, I mean, it was nothing like, Joe, it was nothing like New Lenox. I know you were at New Lenox. It was nothing like that.
Yeah, the Ringo concert, they oversold it. It was uncomfortably crowded.
Yeah, and it was not uncomfortable. We had 15,000 people there. It was not uncomfortable.
And the fact that you have that hill, that if you came in late, I got there at 10 to 3 for the 4:30 door opening, which was kind of a mess with the lines. But if you got there late and you were over the hill, you could not see, you could not hear. They have a blow-up screen with a video projector, which is not good.
Yeah, so, and oh, by the way, we only opened to here. This area right here was seated. It will be open next year, so we have more space back there. So we can hold a lot of people. I think we're a long way away from having to worry about being overcrowded or anything.
Yeah, there's talk that the sales tax is going up to 11.5%. Is that true? What's driving that? Wouldn't that lead people to go to Tinley and?
No, so, yeah, there's all kinds of misinformation out there about stuff, and, you know, good for you to come and ask the question. So the downtown triangle that we just talked about, we approved a business tax district for that space, okay, of 1%, okay, which would bring us to, I think, 11 and a quarter, I think, that space, okay? But that's only for stuff in that space. That's to help pay for that project. So this is, ideally, this is going to be an attraction, right? And that's, and by law, that money can only be used for the infrastructure in that space. So that's what we approved that for. So, and you know, I saw this, you know, I saw the goofy ads that property or the sales tax is higher than Los Angeles. Well, that's because the state's 6.5 and the city's 3, and you got RTA tax. I mean, you know, our taxes, our sales tax for Orland Park is 1.25%. And that 1.25% is what pays for all the stuff that we have, right? And about 2/3 of that is paid for by people outside of Orland Park that come here. So that's, you know, so that's why we do that. That's our portion of it. The rest of it is RTA, Cook County, and the state of Illinois. So, yeah, so good for you to ask the question. And yes, it will be 1% higher in the triangle, that triangle, which is going to have a handful of retail shops and restaurants. That's it. Nowhere else. It's just for that. And that was, again, to help offset those costs to make sure that we can do a project there that works well.
What is the holdup with Pete's?
Hold Up with Pete's has been their cabinets, their all of the, you know, basically the casing and all of that. So they ordered it over a year ago, and it's been back ordered. I talked to them this week, and they finally got some of their cases in, not all of them, as you can imagine. So it's ready. They just need to put all the casing, the shelves, and they're just backlogged in supply for casings and shelves. And once they get that in, then they have to stock it, and you can imagine what that is like. So they had told me the summer, then they told me the fall. Now they're saying then they were saying before the holidays. You know, the holiday season, Thanksgiving and Christmas is huge for them, so they really want to be open. He thinks they're on track for that to be before the end of the year, he thinks, is what he told me, because they finally got cases in, which they didn't have before. So that's the only holdup. It's basically the cases, the shelving, and then they got to stock it.
What is going on the property on 159th and 94th Avenue that was Kentucky Fried Chicken and a gas station?
So 159th and 94th Avenue, where Kentucky Fried Chicken and the gas station there. So we did have a project that the board voted down for that, which was a hotel and some restaurants along 159th and along LaGrange, so all that. Then behind it, there would have been about 120 units of apartments. The board voted that down. I personally think it's probably the best project we'll ever see in this area. Since 1990, they've had the property. This is the first project they've actually brought. It's a really hard area to develop. It's full of wetlands in the back. It's a very hard area to develop. I do know that they're planning on coming back with some changes. And they're also, I think they've been talking to KFC and the gas station to try and get that too, as well. Yeah, I personally, do I think the project makes or breaks Orland Park? No. Do I think it's the best project we're likely to ever see on this particular property? Yes. Apartments behind it. If you think of
The hotel going
on 159th.
where
There's open lots. There's open lots there. There's a bunch of open spaces. So if you think of 159th all the way to past Lazy Boy and all the way to 94th, that's the whole property. So all the open spaces there. So it would have been on the open lots. There's a hotel, a restaurant, and then 2 restaurants along LaGrange Road. And then in the back, behind there, no one's ever building single-family homes back there. No one would ever buy them. It's not big enough for townhomes. If you think about what's back there, you got a Walmart and you got all that. It's just not, I'm not a big fan of adding apartments, but there are a few places in Orland Park where that's the only thing that's gonna make sense. And it probably makes sense there. This idea that we're gonna build condos, no one's buying condos. I don't think there's been a condo development in decades because no one's buying those. So, and it's just not a big enough space for a townhouse development or something like that. And right behind it, there's actually 5-story buildings of housing behind it now. So it actually fits. And it's not a lot of density. It's, like I said, I think it's 35% the size of 9750 as far as units. It's not huge density, so it kind of makes sense. Nobody's going to want to build single family right there on 159th and LaGrange, but
somewhere, not for it, because it heard it was going to be partially Section 8.
so no. So every single thing that we do, assisted housing. Orland Park doesn't do any publicly assisted housing. However, vouchers, Cook County vouchers, anything that's for rent, if someone has a voucher that's for enough money to cover that rent, they can use it. And no one can ask where the money came from. So I can promise you there are more people with vouchers in rental homes in Orland Park than there probably are in apartments. So, but the new apartments, the amenities, the rents are, like projected $2,500 to $3,000 a month. I'd never pay that to rent, but that's what people are paying for rent. So, I mean, that's 9750, that's all those places. So, yeah, that's always, so now across the way in Orland Hills, they have a complex that is a assisted, that's what it is. The whole complex was built that way. We don't have any of that. So, and I can't foresee, well, certainly not this board, but I can't foresee any board being on board with that. And this board is pretty much, I mean, again, I see apartment stuff, or did, every week. And we say, no, we want ownership, not rental. But there are a few places where rental's gonna make sense. That's probably that place probably does make sense. Correct. But some of them are getting a voucher from Cook County or from some other source to come up with that money. Here's the thing about that is, if you think about someone who's on, that's a golden ticket. They don't want to mess that up, right? So quite frankly, the problems I would say, generally speaking, with apartments, the big apartment complexes or the big rental complexes that we generally have a few issues when they open up, because they're trying to get full and they maybe don't screen as well as they should. So we maybe have a few issues at the beginning, and then we sit down, we talk with them. This is kind of how it goes. We sit down, we talk with them, we talk about plans about how to make things better, and then usually we don't have any more issues. So we don't really have any issues at 9750, or over behind the crossings. I forget what that's called. Orland Bridge. We all know there was a shooting there. It wasn't. The people involved, the people arrested, they didn't live there. They just happened to be following each other, and that's happened to be where they pulled in and caught up with them. So they'd been tracking them for a long time. It was a targeted thing. So unfortunately, it happened in Orland Park. But our guys caught him, so, or our guys solved the case, so.
Is it possible to extend the season for the Centennial Park Aqua Pool?
No, we won't extend so the question was, will we extend the season for Centennial Pool? No, I mean, typically Memorial Day to Labor Day, even that sometimes gets sketchy. We happen to be having a very hot September, but most years, we're not, and oh, by the way, school's back in session. So we don't even see, after school goes back in session, even the last couple weeks to Labor Day, we don't see anywhere near the same number of people at Centennial Pool. So it'll stay Memorial Day to Labor Day. I don't see any reason to change that.
Let me ask you what's happening to Riviera, because I use the pool over there, enjoy it,
Well, so Riviera is a private business. It's a private business. It was built in like the 70s. So the business obviously eventually failed. They didn't put money into it. The people that bought it, they did find someone to lease the banquet space, and they did a really nice job actually, because it was pretty dated. You've got Opa at the restaurant. They've spent money on the pool and all that stuff on the inside, but I don't see that ever being a fitness center. In fact, if it wasn't grandfathered in, it doesn't even meet code for so many things anymore. I would love to see them come up with a plan. Personally, if you ask me, what I think is the best use for that property is probably residential. It's probably townhomes or something like that to buffer against the single-family homes. That's probably the most logical use over there. It's not really a commercial area all that much anymore. But that's really up to the developer to decide what to do. It's not up to the village to decide what to do, and we haven't seen any plans.
What about the property across from Cooper's Hawk? That big stretch, right across the street from Cooper's Hawk?
You're talking about to the south?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, we're familiar with it. We've seen plans. They wanted to put giant apartment complexes there. We said no. So up until, so we just have to wait and see what they come up with. But what they were what we've seen as plans there didn't get past the starting gate.
Isn't that a commercial area?
It is. So we did tell them we would probably allow some. We'd probably allow some in the back, but you needed to have commercial up in front, and they really didn't. They entertained it for a little while, but they didn't have it. We also, we've had some inquiries from commercial places looking for larger spaces. We've given that space to them, to look at, if they wanted to purchase something. Yeah, but we haven't seen anything for that. That's not imminent. I haven't seen any plans on that.
Is there a date for the extension of Ravinia going in front of Costco to LaGrange?
So that goes back to the question. So the question is there the date for the Ravinia extension? That goes back to the PD's 2 question of development. That's part of that whole property. So the PD's 2 development that we've seen, you may have seen, if you've seen the ads on the 11% taxes, you've seen the stuff on the TIFs and blah, 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 that I'm against TIFs and et cetera. Well, first off, obviously I'm not against TIFs. I've actually spent a lot of time with the mayors fighting the state as they try and take that tool away from because it's one of the few tools municipalities have left for economic development that actually doesn't cost the taxpayers anything if done right. It's done inside the TIF. But they got to be done right. So that particular area, as well as a couple others, we've studied doing a TIF there. As you saw from the process of doing a TIF, it's a long process. 2022, we approved the development plan. We just approved the TIF. We just had the public hearing for the TIF. The TIF is actually not formally approved until October, so it's a long process. Probably the fastest you could get it done once the development plan is done is probably 6 months, but you're probably talking overall, you're talking a year to 2 years to get anything like that done. So, but what we did was we studied that and a couple others for potential for TIF. And the developer who owns those properties, actually owns all 3 of them, They put money into an escrow to pay for that study. So you're not paying for that study, they're paying for that study. Okay, so that's what we've done on that, and we've done this. I don't know if all the studies are done, but we've been in process. The reason why we would use a TIF on that property is for exactly what you just said. That road connection from Ravinia to LaGrange, we need to pay for, and we also need to pay for the intersection and the light at LaGrange Road. That's the deal we have with IDOT. That TIF money would be used to pay for that. So that's why we would do it. In talking to them, that project is probably the one that they feel furthest along. We've seen more on their Andrew Corporation property, but they said that one's not in their mind, it's not as far as along because there's a lot of cleanup involved. And why would we TIF the Andrew property? I think it's in all of our interest to get that property cleaned. So we would pay for, that money would be used for the cleanup. It would also be used to connect 151st over the railroad tracks. So that's what that would be used for there. So, but again, those are so far off. We have to have plans. We have to, you see, like this one, we approved the concept of the development plan in 2022. So there's a lot of public hearings, a lot of stuff that happens before any of that stuff gets done. I would just say we're being proactive. We're thinking about it. We're saying, hey, how can we? And one of the ways that we can get get those projects off the ground the fastest is to have these studies done ahead of time. Otherwise, we have to wait to get the studies done.
What is supposed to go there?
Supposed to go where?
What is planned to go there?
To go where?
At 159th.
So like I said earlier, it's a mixed-use retail, restaurants, office. So again, not this, and the office quite likely be medical office, yeah, it's, I guess it could be as fast as 2 years, but yes, not tomorrow, for sure. And they have not submitted plans yet. They did say they're getting closer to submitting plans. Once they submit plans, then the review process starts, then the TIF process starts and all that stuff. But I would say that's a safe timeline. The fastest you could see it is, I would say, and that's if it raced, would be approval at the end, a year from now, and breaking ground in the spring of 26. That's the fastest you would see. But the good thing is they're very high on Orland Park. They have a few developments they're looking at. I think those are the two that are most advanced. Andrew is housing, but it's all owned and mostly houses, so which is great. Because the first plan we saw was a lot of apartments. We said no, and they found a way to make it work.
Well, there's a general question. Has anybody ever given any thought to reducing automobile dependency and possibly some kind of public transportation throughout the village of Orland Park?
So the village of Orland Park is not going to undertake any public transportation, but we already have public transportation throughout the county, throughout the area that village of Orland Park is part of. So you have the PACE buses, we have Metra. Anyone who's been paying attention knows that all of those things are basically hemorrhaging money and losing money, and they're trying to figure out how to stay operative. We also operate, the village, has 2 PACE buses that we operate and pay for. Back when I became mayor, we had a bus thing we were operating. It was costing the village $150,000 plus a year. By partnering with PACE, it cost us about 20 to do it, so we saved a lot of money. But basically, that allows for people to get transport inside of Orland Park. So we already have that. PACE has some services for special needs, so there's a lot of public transportation that's already available out there, as well as we have a completely bike-connected network, almost complete. There's a couple places it's not connected yet, but people can get around that way. So I can't see that becoming any more robust than what it is. Ultimately, we're a suburb 30 miles from the city of Chicago. I always hear this, so this is something we saw in development. When I got here, it's like, oh, we need to have all these bike racks. I'm like, car dealers where they're requiring 35 bike racks. I'm like, on what planet are 35 people riding their bikes to a car dealer, right? And so, you know, that was one of the things we fixed in the code is how many bike racks we, because it's just way too many. It's like nobody's getting around. I mean, at the end of the day, we're a suburb that's driven by automobiles. I mean, that's just the way it is. And, you know, bikes might be great now. In 3 months, nobody's gonna be biking and no one's biking to Pete's Fresh Market to carry their groceries home. I mean, that's just the reality. So, you know, there was a big, and believe me, there was a big push inside of our planning department. Most of those people aren't here anymore. But that it was like all about, you know, less parking and more, and I'm like, it's just not gonna happen. You know, we're not a city, and we're not a warm weather city either. So we have to be realistic that we will always be in our lifetimes, we will always be an automobile driven suburb.
Are we finished with the redundant water supply?
So the redundant water supply, we are not finished with that. That will probably go online to us in 27, I think, by the time it's done. So there's still work being done. In fact, I was out there this week. They were connecting the second spur into our water supply, but it won't be. Then they're going to do next year. They're connecting it across on the other side of Harlem. Then we have to tie into that. So it's probably 2027 until we see it. I think it's 29 until the whole system has it. But yeah, and they don't even have it all yet connected to Oak Lawn. There's a section they still have to do, but 2027.
I've got a comment. Our first responders, the police and fire, do a fantastic job. What's the outlook for both of those departments as far as expanding them? Because crime has no barriers, they go wherever they want.
So, well, first off, the fire, we don't have, the village is not responsible for, so that's the fire district. Their budget is almost as big as, their operating budget is almost as big as the village's, so I don't know that they need expansion. I kind of think they need to be they need to, as we grow, we'll grow into what they have, because they're probably pretty big. There's no plans on expanding our police department. I mean, our last 5 years is the lowest crime we've seen in the last 29 due to our police department and the efforts that we give. I mean, the reality is you know, more police, it's more money. And where's the money going to come from? So, you know, the pressures that we have are real. There's no question about that, but we've done a good job being proactive with that and changing that. And one of the things we do is we spend a lot of money on investigations like this shooting. Our chief would tell you he doesn't think that any other department in the state would have solved it. And it's because of the tools that we've given them. The board, it's the support of previous boards, the support of our board, it's our department, it's the training they have. But by catching them, here's what happens. There's criminals here. I mean, there's going to be criminals here in an hour, you know, shopping and eating, right? But they're shopping and eating and paying here because they don't want to get caught. They know if they do something here, they're going to get caught. So that's the biggest deterrent that we have. So we continue to put efforts in that, and so far it's you know, been going. You know, I mean, the last 5 years have been very, very good. So trust me, it was quieter in 2017 than it is now. We're busier, but we've done a good job of, you know, and we're a big town. So recently, a group came out with a study. And they studied the 360 largest suburbs in the United States. And there were like 5 different areas they looked at, but one of them was violent crime per capita, we're number 5, and the other was property crime per capita, we're number 2. So still a very safe town. So most of our crime is retail theft, as you might imagine, shoplifting. Probably has been since the mall was open in the 70s.
Question. Hi. Question I have is, there's supposed to be a bike trail built from LaGrange Road to Wolf Road. When will that be completed?
From LaGrange Road to Wolf Road, there is one on 159th already. So
I thought there was going to be one, though, going from LaGrange to Wolf, up near, behind that McGinnis Slough in that area.
no, there's not one going from LaGrange to Wolf there. There's a connection. Yeah, there's a connection around McGinnis Slough that connects to our path, and that is in process. I don't know exactly the timeline, a couple years probably till it's done.
But that would go to Wolf
It does run by, I believe it runs by Wolf Road, yes. It does eventually, it goes around McGinnis Slough and then back to that area, yes.
So it'd be between 143rd and
It would be over by McGinnis Slough, over by 131st.
31st?
Yeah.
In that area?
And then the 143rd Street, when it's widened, that'll have a bike path as well, because all of those roads are gonna be complete streets, so they'll have a bike path as well.
Okay.
So when that gets done. You're talking about the red light cameras? So we have 3 of them, and there's no plans right now to put any more in, so we've added one since I've been mayor, and that was at 94th and 159th, because it was our highest crash intersection, and it has reduced crashes by about half. So we've seen that go down, so we really put them in for safety. The other places, I think, is Harlem and 159th, and 151st and 150 and Harlem. I think the other 2 places, and again, those are really high crash areas, so that's why that we did it. We don't write, basically, we don't really write on red too much through those tickets. The only time, so we review them all, and anything that's, the only time we would do like a write on red is if someone just blows it at 20 miles an hour and doesn't, if the rolling stop, we don't do that. Or if there's a pedestrian and they roll through it. So that would be the only time. Otherwise, it's just red light infraction. So we're not really using it. Yeah, is there a little bit of income? Probably a couple $100,000 a year, yes. But is that why we do it? No, because if we did, we'd write all those right on reds like Payless Hills does at Stag. Yeah, so we don't do that. It really was to try and keep, because it works. I mean, it does reduce the amount of collisions we have. And then the other thing is we are also paying for some engineering on 159th and 94th Avenue to redo that intersection to make it a safer intersection, because it's still a pretty sketchy intersection from a safety perspective.
Speaking of 159th and 94th Avenue, I know that Orland really can't do much about the traffic, but oh my gosh, on 159th, you can see, as far as you can see, there's cars, like all day long.
Yeah,
I
well.
mean, is it a light issue? I mean,
No, it's.
I've been here forever, I've never seen it.
So 159th is a commercial corridor, and it's a state road, so it's gonna be busy, and it's gonna have a lot of traffic. I can tell you, I'm not, 159th is probably the worst street in Orland as far as that goes. Most people who live in Orland can know how to get around it. But if you go to other towns, trust me, traffic's way, way worse. But as I was just saying, we are studying 159th and 94th Avenue to try and improve that intersection flow. So we're doing an engineering study there to try and improve that flow. And I'll let the engineers figure out how to do that. But, if we don't have cars there, we don't have sales tax. So it's all that's, bottom line, it's a state highway, it's a commercial corridor, it's gonna have traffic. So. And there's I don't see there's anything in the future where that's going to get widened like LaGrange Road did, so. It's only 4 lanes, it's not 6 lanes like LaGrange.
It just seems like it's a light issue, like make it light.
Well, the lights we have no control over, that's an IDOT related issue, but there's a lot of lights, and it's a commercial corridor with a lot of lights, so there's a lot. I mean, go down Harlem in Payless. It's horrible, and it doesn't have nearly as much traffic or commercial as we do. So that's okay. That's why I'm here. So the cabins, I think, are still there. Yeah, so I think long-term, those cabins are planned to be moved over to Stellwagen, so they're kind of, because they're not really, they're replicas, they're not even original. Probably over to Stellwagen Farm. Stellwagen Farm's off of 108th, it's a historic farm, and so probably our historical buildings, because they're not in their original place, number one. Number two, they're not even original, they're replicas, so they'll probably be moved over there eventually. That's the long-term plan. But that's, well, I mean, there's no real historic stuff over there. That's not really a historic district or anything. Those 2 cabins are just placed there. The only thing we have over there is you have High Point School, you have John Humphrey You have the John Humphrey Complex. John Humphrey Complex was built after I left in '83, so that was built in like '88, '89, so not historic. There's nothing historic there. They put those cabins there because they didn't know what else to do with them. They're replicas again. So we're gonna probably put those over to Stellwagen, which actually is a historic farm, and it goes back to the 1800s. So, and it still has a lot of operating farm buildings and that kind of stuff. To TGA Fridays, it's Fogo de Chao. Fogo de Chao is going into TGI Fridays. Seasons 52 is going into Chewy's. Steinhoff is supposed to open, well, supposed to open this month, so I don't know. I've heard ads that they're opening this month, but I haven't seen anything. Houlihan's, that's a whole lease and owner issue that is been going on for years. So, Champs, well, that's an owner issue as far as getting any, well, one, it's a huge space, so it's very hard for a restaurant to fill it. I do know there's a restaurant looking at it.
What about the Denny's? They demolished it.
So they demolished the Denny's. There's a Portillo's drive-through going in. So it's a drive-through only, not a eat-in. So the challenge of anything around the mall is that with the MWRD changes for water, there's no water storage there anymore. So you have to store it on your site. So some of these lots are small. There's not a lot of space for them to store. So the nice thing about the Portillo's is it's a small footprint, so they have room to store the water, and it works pretty well because, well, obviously there'll be a lot of people going there, but it's their new drive-through concept. So or newer drive-through concept is going there. So it's a great addition to get rid of the Denny's and fill that space.
Will they not do parking like they did for the Chipotle? You know that complex, how you go into Chipotle
Well, so again,
and
it's going to be a
Panera?
drive-through concept, so the only parking there is going to be for employees, so it's not, there's no dine-in.
No, done.
There's no dine-in. But parking in general along LaGrange Road is going to be in back. I think the thing that I've learned from going over there is that I don't have a problem with the parking in the back, but the entrances, they should have entrances in the back, not just an entrance for employees in the back and not make you walk around the front. That would be a smarter way to design your building. So that's probably the one thing that I would suggest for folks in the future.
So the overflow from their drive-through will go into the mall?
Yeah, but that's been traffic studied, and it's a double lane, so however, so that there was a traffic study done, the engineering was done, that supposedly that won't happen. So, and so, you know, much like Chick-fil-A used to overflow into Lowe's, it doesn't anymore. You know, with the changes they made to their drive-throughs, so supposedly that's all been handled through the engineering and through the traffic engineers and all that, so that was satisfactory. So, yeah, so should be good. But they do access from the mall, not from LaGrange Road. So.
Sears, you had a project going on. Now what happened with Sears?
We don't have a project that's for Sears. We had a project way back before COVID. When COVID happened, it killed the project. It was supposed to be an AMC and a bunch of other stuff, but obviously the theater business went really bad. So the people that bought it via auction never saw it. They brought us a lot of plans, or they've talked about a lot of concepts that we would not accept, or that we won't accept as a board. So just this last board meeting, we kind of talked about it. You can watch it online, what we talked about, but at the end of the day, the board, anything over 50,000 square feet, which that's 200, requires special use permit from the board. So whatever goes there, the board was pretty clear. We expect a complete plan, not some kind of, we're gonna do the bottom floor and we'll do the top later. I wanna see a complete plan. The people that own it have not brought us anything that we'd be remotely interested in, and they've never done anything like this before. So we're pretty leery of them, I guess, would be a way to put it. So we want to see a complete plan from them with everything being occupied and knowing what's going in before we're going to approve anything. And that's kind of the message that we've sent to them. And we want something, the stuff that they brought us would detract from the mall. The mall is the economic engine of our town. So we need to protect it, and we can't have stuff going in there that is going to detract from it. So that's kind of our position on it.
Sales tax with the mall, I've been a long time, about 4 years. How are we doing with that? You know, we had COVID and everything, tried to keep things going.
Sales taxes are up. So, and the mall sales, I think last time I talked to them, are up 4 or 5%. So the mall's doing great. It's a top 1% traffic mall in the country. Oh, it's higher than COVID. They've recovered from COVID. Uh-huh. Yeah, the mall's doing well. So thank you. Yes, I forgot to say thank you to Blissful Banana for doing all this. I'm still, answering questions unless everybody's suddenly eager to leave. Looks like oh, okay, gotcha. So any other questions? A big what?
Ring user,
Yeah.
okay? And the thing was blowing up this last week with the noise. I'm sure you heard noise on LaGrange Road.
So I would suggest take your Ring notifications off. That's my suggestion. I turn mine off because I don't want to see, there's noise on LaGrange Road, there's this, there's that, there's gunshots here, there's gunshots. Trust me, those reports aren't right. And I'm looking so forward when we go to digital radios in a few months so that people aren't sitting on scanners listening to a 911. We get a 911 call, we report it to the police officers, whatever's called in. That doesn't mean it's happening. It means that's the information that we have, and we go out there, and before you know it, it's like, we need notifications, we need a code red. It's like nothing even happened, So, because every one of those Ring camera people that are putting that, they may also be calling 911 as well. So my suggestion is just to get off of that.
Did you see it on TV recently that the iPhones are doing with the police department, and they're able to use the cameras on their phones so the police can see it?
So I'm not sure of that specifically, but I know that the stuff that we can do with cell phones once we get our hands on them and we get warrants to get into them, we can find a lot of stuff that helps us solve a lot of crimes. So, we do have a FUSIS system where you can actually sign up and you let, so there's two parts to it. There's a commercial part to it, which businesses that have cameras can sign up, and they can actually sign up in a way that we can see their cameras and use them. You can also, as a resident, you can sign up to say, I have a Ring camera. And that doesn't mean we're not going to go access your camera. What it means is that we know you have a camera. So if something does happen in your area, we can contact, what we do now is something like that happens, we're knocking on doors to see if anybody caught something on their cameras. So we're going around canvassing the neighborhood. Well, if we know where the cameras are, we'll just call you and say, hey, can we access your camera at this time, blah, blah, blah. So it just allows us to know, it makes it faster for us to investigate. So we do have that system in place. Any other questions?
Any plans for the area on 151st in Harlem where the hot dog place burned down?
151st in Harlem, where Don's Hot Dogs, which used to be Junior's, burned down. The problem with that site is, going back to the MWRD issue with water storage, now when you rebuild, you have to store your water on site. That site is so small, they can't store the drainage on the site, so it's a very weird site, so it's a challenge. So we don't have anything per se that has come through, but that's the challenge they face. We do know that that's the challenge they face.
Car wash there also?
The car wash is there. Probably in an ideal world, somebody buys them both and puts something on the combined site, but there's nothing imminent that I'm aware of.
When you say the MWRD, is that storm or?
It's storm. Metropolitan Water Reclamation District. It's also, they also deal with sewer, but it's storm that's the issue. So it's all the stormwater. So they changed the stormwater requirements even since I've been mayor. Both how much, you're required to store your volume on site. It can't go off-site anymore. So, so with the volume control methods and the things that they have to do, they also have to plan for bigger events than they used to have to plan for. So all of those things are making it more challenging for these small sites and sites to redevelop. The mall as a whole has a problem. We have no place for water storage at the mall as a whole. That's why the Sears site, more than likely, you know, will involve redoing that parking lot because it's way overparked and putting a pond in there so that it can actually take the water from all those from all the outlots.
Keith, as far as that water, like you're saying, well, the Portillo's, they got to store storm water. What do they do with the water then, once it's full?
What do you mean?
Well, you said they had to store.
Well, they have release into the system, but they have to store a certain amount of volume. They have to be able to store a certain amount of volume so it doesn't all flow directly into the system. So
Okay.
So
it'll
all be part of
trickle
it's all
out.
part of the overall system, yeah. But basically, it has to have a certain amount of volume.
So it's like a reservoir holding tank,
Correct.
whatever you want to call it.
Correct. It's like all the ponds we have. The
And
300
then
ponds.
eventually, some of it, you know, that runs into,
Eventually, it runs through the system
got it.
and into the watersheds. Any other questions? Great. Well, thank you all for coming and having so many questions. And hopefully this was informative. I know we saw a lot of new faces, so appreciate it.